Irish 101 Game Day is sponsored by the Notre Dame Football Heritage Project. Commemorate your first Notre Dame game with the Notre Dame Football Heritage Project certificate and help Notre Dame journalism students cover the Notre Dame Navy game in Dublin next season. Visit mysportsheritage.com. Irish 101 is also sponsored by Irish Illustrated. Become a subscriber today on the web at irishillustrated.com. And by Indiana Dunes Tourism. Why not extend your Notre Dame football weekend with a trip to the nation's newest national park? For information, visit indianadunes.com. Welcome to Irish 101 Game Day. I'm Len Clark of Irish 101 alongside Phil Houk of Fighting Irish Preview. This afternoon at Notre Dame Stadium, the 9th-ranked Fighting Irish with a record of 3-1 will take on the Falcons of Bowling Green with a record of 1-3. And Phil, this is a game Notre Dame should win big, but this is the Super Bowl for the Falcons.
Well, that's true. Every team comes in and gives Notre Dame their best game. Bowling Green has had 2 weeks to prepare for this game, like so many teams on Notre Dame's schedule this year. They had a bye before coming into this week. But let's face it, I mean, Notre Dame has a lot more talent. Their second team is probably better than Bowling Green, but Bowling Green will bring their best game today. And more than anything today out of the Irish, after seeing defensive fireworks for Notre Dame last week, particularly in the third quarter with all those sacks, I want to see offensive fireworks today because the offense hasn't quite been in sync all season long, but hopefully today is the day they can get on track because they've got a couple of bigger games, let's say, coming up in the coming weeks.
Take this game step by step, Phil, but last week against Virginia, 8 sacks, and they have a chance to exceed that number, the most in the Brian Kelly era last week, 8 sacks.
Well, they finally got that defensive line doing what they were hyped to do prior to the season, and Romeo Okwara, I think, Julian Okwara, sorry about that, Julian, but Julian Okwara played a tremendous game in that third quarter, 3 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, a fumble recovery, and then that sparked the defense also scoring a touchdown. So it looks like the defensive line is on track, and we knew prior to the season that if anything was going to spark this team, it could be the play of that defensive line and the pass rush.
Well, that was last week. Bowling Green, not the quality opponent that they have faced in past games, but an important game because you want to jump out to an early lead and then give some players on the second, third team a chance to get some necessary playing experience.
Well, building depth is important in games like this, but of course you got to win the game first, and I don't take anything for granted, but the fact is there's a huge talent disparity between these two ball clubs. Bowling Green in their last 3 years is 9-27 since they actually had a pretty good season, went to a bowl back in 2016. But they're rebuilding their program right now under new coach Scott Loeffler. But we get Brian Van Gorder back in the house today for the first time since he was let go by the Irish as a defensive coordinator. And Bowling Green, this is their big game of the season that they've been gearing up for quite some time.
A little nugget, Bowling Green on a 6-game winning streak in the state of Indiana. That includes a couple of wins over Purdue.
Well, only you would know that. And
no, I found that out from the Bowling Green announcers.
Well, that's a great stat to think about. Notre Dame on a little bit of a streak of their own, Len. Notre Dame has won 13 consecutive home games, the third longest winning streak of the since the stadium was built for the Irish, and I expect them to go to game 14 in that streak today. I don't think any doubt about that. The Irish are big favorites in this football game.
Okay, the keys from both of us. Your key in the ball game.
Well, my key is to show up and do your job and don't flinch. I think it's likely that Bowling Green is going to bring some tricks into this game. That's really about one of the few things they would have going for them, particularly with 2 weeks to prepare, but you can't let that rattle you. And one thing we have seen in this Notre Dame team is they have not flinched against Georgia, and last week when things maybe went a little wrong against them, they turned things around immediately, and they handled their jobs very well. That's what Notre Dame's got to do today. Just do your job, do the little things, and the talent will take care of itself.
And my key is to stay healthy. You don't want to go with injuries into the USC game next week. Coming up next on Irish 101 Game Day, we'll check in with the coach of the Fighting Irish to get his preview on the Falcons of Bowling Green.
Bowling Green, I have a great deal of respect for Scott Loeffler and taking over this program. I know how hard it is at the MAC level when you're coming in to put in your culture and develop your philosophy offensively, defensively, and special teams. He'll do it. He's been in college football for many years. He's been very successful. You can start to see that, he wants to run the football. He does a great job protecting the quarterback. Obviously have a great personal relationship with Brian Van Gorder. Respect him as a football coach and as a person. You can see that he's, getting those guys lined up, getting them to play fundamental football first and foremost. And it's just a matter of recruiting and time and getting those guys to the level where they can compete in the MAC. So, again, each and every week in college football, it's about preparation and getting ready to play. And for us, how good do we want to be as we get another opportunity to play at home in front of our crowd.
For a preview of today's opponent, let's go inside the Len zone with the voice of the Falcons, Todd Walker.
This afternoon at Notre Dame Stadium, the 9th-ranked Fighting Irish, with a record of 3-1, will take on the 1-3 Falcons of Bowling Green. For additional insight into the Falcons, here's the voice of Bowling Green, Todd Walker.
Hi, Irish Nation. Todd Walker here, the voice of the Bowling Green Falcons. Give you a little preview on BGSU. Falcons come in at 1-3. They rolled in their opening game over an outmatched Morgan State club. Then they were handled on the road by Kansas State. Came back home, played pretty well against La Tech, although the score didn't really reflect it. BG defense played a solid game. The offense came up empty on several red zone trips. And then the trip to Kent State, a 62-20 loss 2 weeks ago, was particularly demoralizing to lose to a team that Bowling Green usually handles and a team that is usually at the bottom of the Mid-American Conference. So now after an off week, they come to South Bend for the first time ever. Coach Scott Loeffler says during the off week they pared down the offense a little bit. Quarterback Darius Wade has struggled with his consistency. Falcons have not had a lot of success in the pass game. They have had some success running the ball with Andrew Clare and Devon Jones, a good 1-2 punch at the running back spot. But until Wade can be more accurate and the receivers more consistent in catching balls when he does throw them where they're supposed to be, Falcons will struggle offensively. Defensively, Bowling Green has had flashes of very good play. They got after the quarterback very well against Louisiana Tech, for instance, but it's an undermanned squad. BG's playing with about 67 or 68 scholarship players right now, and that catches up with the defense really quickly, especially against a team like Kent State that runs that tempo offense. But we'll see if Bowling Green can get after the quarterback today and take care of Ian Book and company, or at least keep them under wraps and keep this game close. The Falcons have won 6 of their last 7 games in the state of Indiana, including a couple of wins over Purdue. We'll see if that Hoosier State luck can carry over to Saturday at Notre Dame. Good to be with you. Good luck to the Irish the rest of the season. We'll see you on Saturday.
Coming up next on Irish 101 Game Day, Phil Houk takes a closer look at the Gipper, George Gipp.
Gipp was born the son of a Baptist preacher in 1895 in the tiny Upper Peninsula Michigan village of Laurium. The 6-foot, 180-pound Gipp had been a basketball and baseball star in high school, and on the referral of a friend who had attended ND, he came to South Bend in 1916 on a baseball scholarship. One day early in his first semester, Newt Rockney, then an assistant to head football coach Jess Harper, was stopped in his tracks at the sight of Gipp in street shoes, easily punting a ball over 60 yards. A conversation ensued, and Gipp was convinced to join the football team. In a freshman game that year, he made one of his first marks by, instead of punting as instructed, he drop-kicked and the ball sailed 62 yards for a field goal to break a tie late in the game. Gipp was given a full-time role as a sophomore, and over the next 3 years averaged 177 yards of offense every game he played. He was so dominant that he led the Irish in rushing and passing each of his 3 varsity seasons. Against Army his senior year, he amassed in one game 480 yards of total offense. His senior year, he averaged 8.1 yards per carry, an ND record that still stands today. Gipp was also a skilled defender who reportedly never allowed a man he was guarding to catch a pass. With Gipp on the field, the Irish compiled a 3-year record of 27-2, including undefeated seasons in 1919 and 1920. 2 weeks after his final game in 1920, he contracted strep throat, and a few minutes past 7 on December 14, 1920, as the Notre Dame student body knelt in prayer in the snow outside St. Joseph's Hospital in South Bend, George Gipp died, and the legend of the Gipper was born. Immortalized and mythicized by Hollywood, George Gipp was a free spirit who is known as well around South Bend for his exploits in pool halls and poker rooms as he was on the football field. But make no mistake, George Gipp's legend persists to this day because he was a magnificent football player. Next up on Irish 101 Game Day, Kevin Sinclair has this week's Irish Illustrated recruiting update.
This week, Notre Dame gears up to play Bowling Green at home. Everyone's sort of expecting a blowout win, including myself. Not exactly a huge home game recruiting weekend. Notre Dame sort of saving up that big home crown visitor list for the October 12th home game versus USC, of course. I expect to see pretty much the entirety of Notre Dame's committed prospects, minus maybe a small handful, to attend that game next weekend, along with a lot of the top prospects in both classes. We'll get more into that next week. This week, though, again, not a whole lot of prospects in the 2020 class, given that class already being full. Notre Dame evaluating defensive backs to sort of offer and pursue to round out their class. But this weekend, there will be a big crop of 2021 prospects. We'll have a full preview of that visitor list at Irish Illustrated soon, so look out for that. But a few that I like: Terrence Enos Jr. Out of the Detroit area, 6'5", 320-pounder, and also a cornerback named Derek Spearman, 6'3", 185. Everyone loves those long corners. That's another guy. Neither are offered, but I wouldn't be surprised if either did get offers this weekend or in the future. So keep an eye on those two.
Coming up at 3:42 p.m. Eastern Time, the 9th-ranked Fighting Irish will face Bowling Green. Go to irishillustrated.com for a preview with Tim Priester and Tim O'Malley, and get post-game analysis after the game on Irish Illustrated. Irish 101 Game Day is made possible by Indiana Dunes Tourism, also by Irish Illustrated, and by the Notre Dame Football Heritage Project. Help Notre Dame journalism students get to cover the game in Dublin next season by purchasing a Notre Dame Football Heritage certificate. Go to mysportsheritage.com. Phil, an exciting afternoon. The sun is out, a blue-gray October sky with a little bit of sun.
Well, a lot of sun, actually, and I'm looking forward to that. It's going to be a great day here at the stadium, and we're looking for some offensive fireworks and defensive fireworks in a game where the Irish are big favorites.
This has been Irish 101 Game Day. I'm Len Clark of Irish 101.
And I'm Phil Houk of Fighting Irish Preview.
Go Irish.